During the shooting, I want to play it for our viewers for the first time, but I want to caution them. This is potentially disturbing. Watch this.
Run, Joe! He's coming out this door!
Horrific, truly horrifying look inside the massacre. So, Kyung, you're there, you're on the scene. What are you learning tonight?
Well, the FBI is trying to figure out exactly why this man would do this. This is someone who multiple friends have told CNN that they simply don't understand. A normal guy, a guy who went to serve his country. So the FBI has been at his home, the home that he shared with his mother throughout the day, trying to piece the picture together of a disturbed mind. We're now learning more about the gunman who turned this California bar into a gruesome crime scene. Investigators identified him as Ian David Long, a 28-year-old war veteran. He entered the bar just before 11:30 p.m., carrying a .45 caliber Glock and an extended magazine. Friends say the divorced former Marine had frequented the bar often, but Wednesday night, he came to kill.
We got multiple people down. We need a lot of ambulance.
Initial 911 dispatches from the scene only hint at the horror unfolding inside.
We have one victim who was shot and bleeding at the entrance.
College country night at Borderline Bar in Thousand Oaks, California, outside of Los Angeles, had drawn a crowd of more than 100 young patrons.
I saw him point to the back of the cash register, and he just kept firing. He shot the front doorman, bouncer. Like just a young man, and then he shot the cashier.
First responders rushed to the scene as survivors scrambled to escape.
Friends got the bar stools and they started slamming it against the window so we could get out.
Victims were carried out one by one, and desperate life-saving efforts took place in the parking lot. Still, many remained inside.
We're still missing 2 people. We can't find them.
Parents now just beginning to learn which of their children will never return.
Oh, son, I love you so much. Oh, Heavenly Father, just please be with him.
The gunman was found dead inside the bar's front office, an apparent suicide, according to police. CNN has learned Long was a former infantry machine gunner who had served in Afghanistan. He was also known to police. Last April, law enforcement responded to a domestic disturbance at this Newbury Park home where he lived with his mother.
The mental health experts out there cleared him that day. The deputies went out to the call with the crisis team that felt he might be suffering from PTSD.
Richard Berg, who lives a block and a half away, tells us Long's mother feared for his future. Now, CNN did speak with several of the childhood friends of this gunman. One vaguely remembers this gunman mentioning that he had trouble sleeping. He had some nightmares, anxiety. But another friend who didn't hear anything like this, Wolf, says, quote, "I don't know what the hell happened." Wolf?
Security guard at the nightclub, the first victim that was killed. Cole Knapp and Matt Winterstrom were inside the Borderline Bar and Grill when the gunfire started. Cole and Matt are joining us now. We appreciate you joining us. Can you describe, Cole, what you were doing when you first heard the gunshots?
We were just standing, me and Matt were standing next to each other talking to some of our friends, and I had a line of sight of the bar, and that was what I was doing.
Are all of your friends accounted for?
Unfortunately not.
You have not been able to reach the friends that you were with that evening yet?
Most of them, yes, but there's a couple that we're still missing.
Describe the scene inside the bar.
It was, before it happened, it was just a normal Wednesday night, just having a good time, and as soon as it all started, it just went to utter chaos real quick.
How did you try and hide yourself and your friends and ultimately escape?
We both tried to get as many people behind cover as we could. I was next to an exit that exits out onto a patio where people smoke. And when I went out there, there was a bunch of people out there who had no idea that anything was going on because they were away from the noise. And I told all of them to hop the fence and get out.
The shooter, he was a tall, dark figure, probably 6'2", 6'3", and he was pointing a handgun over the counter towards the workers that were working there and just started firing. And so my instinct kicked in, and I had to save my family and friends. We had to make sure that we got as many of them out of there as possible. So we dropped to the floor and hid underneath a pool table until I heard the first round of shots cease, and we figured that that was the end of his magazine, at least, that he had run out of bullets to fire. And at that point, I looked to my left and I saw that someone had thrown one of the bar stools through the window to create an exit. And so I grabbed the nearest bar stool that was next to me and threw that through. And then me and probably 4 other guys began shuffling men and women and people as young as 18 out of the back windows into the embankment below, just so that we could get everyone out of there and just keep as many of us safe as possible.
Do you know that he was in the bar?
He said goodbye to me last night before he walked out the door to go to Borderline.
And is that the last time you spoke to him?
That is the last time that I said goodbye to my son.
I noticed a lot of people walking along Thousand Oaks Boulevard, and I was wondering where they were going. It was really cold outside. It was really windy, and I was going, man, this weather isn't stopping these people from going somewhere. And then I noticed what it was. People were going to a vigil outside of City Hall. A massive vigil was held there tonight, and KCAL 9's Rachel Kim is there live with an update from there. Rachel?
Yes, Susie, the sadness here at this vigil tonight was tangible. Everyone has gone home now, but take a look behind me. Look at what some left behind. A circle of candles filled with flowers and an American flag standing, still waving, Thousand Oaks strong. We spoke with some of those who attended, including Mariah Piasecki. She said 2 of her best friends died in this shooting, Blake Dingman and Jake Dunham. Mariah said she was supposed to go out with them last night. She told us a little bit about them.
Jake, always a crazy one. You had a bad idea and everyone wasn't for it. He'd be the one person for it, and he would tell you just to do it. Same with Blake. They were both the crazy ones out of the group. Always go in the desert together, sitting by fires, just talking about everything. Those were honestly the best 2 people I've ever met.
Victims in the mass shooting at the Borderline Bar and Grill. And we wanted to take a moment to remember each of these lives that were lost and share what we know about them so far. So here are all of the 12 victims.
22-year-old Cody Kaufman loved college nights at the Borderline Bar and Grill, so he was known to be there every Wednesday. He was an older brother and an umpire for a youth baseball league. His father said a tearful goodbye after learning his son had been killed.
So difficult to hear that. This is 22-year-old Elena Housley. She also died in the massacre. She was the niece of a former Fox News correspondent, Adam Housley, and his wife, actress Tamara Mowry Housley, best known for her role in the show Sister Sister. Elena's former high school principal remembered her as an exceptional student.
And then there's Tel Orfanos. Incredibly, he survived the Las Vegas shooting in October of last year, only to be killed in Wednesday night's violence. His mother has a powerful message calling for gun control. Justin Meek, who recently graduated from college, was about to enter the Coast Guard. His younger sister reportedly survived the shooting because he protected her.
His friend, Daniel Manrique, was also a veteran who helped others transition into civilian life. His family said they have no doubt he died shielding others from bullets.
Sean Adler was a bouncer at the bar. His friends describe him as a loving and devoted father.
He'd be the first one to stand up to save somebody's life, no matter what age, color, kid, adult, elderly. He just was that guy.
Many of the victims were young college students enjoying a night out, dancing with friends. This is 21-year-old Noelle Sparks. She went to Moore Park College. She was a youth camp leader, and her best friend told CBS News she loved to sing.
And finally, Ron Helis. He's the officer who was shot and killed when entering the Borderline Bar and Grill. The Ventura County Sheriff had this to say about the man being hailed as a hero.
I said to her, because of Ron, many lives were saved.
Deadly mass shooting in a Southern California bar and country music venue. The Ventura County Sheriff says a gunman opened fire inside as it was crowded with more than 100 people, many of them college students. He killed 12 people, including a sheriff's sergeant who was responding to the scene. Police found the shooter dead inside, and they reportedly have identified him.
He is believed to be 29. Carter Evans is near the scene in Thousand Oaks. Carter, good morning to you. What's the latest?
Well, police and sheriff's investigators have just identified the shooter. They say he is 28-year-old Ian Long. He lives in Newberry Park, not too far from here, just a few minutes away. Entered when everybody was having a good time last night, dancing on the dance floor. He stormed through the door and opened fire.
I just started hearing these big pops, pop, pop, pop.
John was inside the bar near the front door with his stepdad. He said they watched the gunman shoot the bouncer and then move through the bar.
I ran out the front door. I hear chairs being thrown out the window. People were trying to get out the window. And the gunman went behind the cash register. There was probably 12 shots before I got out the front.
About the suspect with each passing hour, but witnesses say that he shot the bouncer first before firing off multiple rounds and that he had smoke bombs. So would that indicate to you that this was premeditated?
Oh, without question. There's no question about that. When you take a look at the way that this individual prepared, there's two parts to that question. The first part, was it premeditated? Yes, just by the overt manner in which he planned it. The time, the location, both of those were intentional. All of these things will start to materialize, and at that point, we'll start to know when he started to engage back in the community, that's when relative information from neighbors, friends, etc., is going to start to create a mosaic of who this person really was.
Now, the reports that he could have suffered from PTSD, and of course that he has a military record, you know, it's so hard for people to imagine someone who fought for their country, you know, who made an oath to defend the country, to turn around and then become murderous like that, as seemingly without warning, although we're going to look into whether there was a warning. Does that surprise you that someone who, you know, served their country would turn around and do something like this?
It really doesn't, and I'll tell you why, and I think that's really going to be the most poignant question of all that we talk about. And the reason I say that is because the trauma that people go through when they're not on U.S. soil, when they're interfacing with the worst possible scenario anyone could even imagine, conditions they'd never even possibly tried to prepare for and couldn't, and to see the things and smell the things that they did day in and day out, this is what causes post-traumatic stress disorder. And I will say this even one step further, and I'm not in any way justifying what happened, no, at all. None of us are. But to drill down on that question, though, Tanya, the biggest, most compelling thing that we need to understand, this is not an isolated incident. This is happening frequently.
A night of dancing and country music ended when gunfire began. This is chilling new video from the scene. The shooter was a Marine combat veteran who is believed to have killed himself after taking 12 lives. Among the dead was a sheriff's sergeant. First responders and many others stood and paid their respects as his body was driven to the medical examiner's office.
People gathered last night to remember the victims of Wednesday night's shooting. This morning, we know many of them. Also learning more about the former Marine responsible for the attack. Carter Evans is outside the Borderline Bar and Grill in Thousand Oaks. Carter, good morning.
Good morning. This is still an active crime scene here. Investigators are inside the Borderline Bar and Grill behind me, gathering evidence. And now, the community of Thousand Oaks, once considered one of the safest cities in America, is coming to grips with this terrible tragedy.